Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and in this episode I spoke with musician Josienne Clarke and filmmaker Alec Bowman Clarke. We talk about the music industry, Josienne's crowdfunder for her new album, and the accompanying making of documentary Alec is filming as part of the process. We also discussed Josienne's experiences in the industry that's taken in working with record labels as well as being an independent, and also Alec talking about the value of music videos in helping to build an audience. I started by asking Josienne and Alec to give a quick intro to themselves.
I'm Josienne Clarke. I've been a professional singer-songwriter for about 12-ish years. I've done things sort of DIY, I've sort of self-released records. I've been on Rough Trade Records, like a sort of large independent label. I've written for the National Theatre, and I have recently opened my own label, Corduroy Punk, from which I now release all of my music.
I'm Alec Bowman Clarke, and I always want to say author, dreamweaver, visionary, but instead, I'll be honest and say portrait photographer and filmmaker. I think that'll do.
Fantastic. Yes, so just to start with, Josienne, you've kind of got your 12th album coming out. Just to kind of talk about why crowdfunder, how it's going, and kind of your plans for it.
It's just very expensive to make records now versus what you can hope to return on them. And what I sort of was planning was that I would make enough from one record to sort of pay back what I'd spent out for the one before, and then I could make another one rather than sort of hoping to live off that. But actually, there's sort of like an increasing shortfall, and I've never done a crowdfunder before, but I do have this lovely little fan base of people who are willing to give me their money, who do want to buy my records, but the record has to exist for them to buy it. So I decided that's the way round that I needed to do it this time. I need their money in order to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of kind of the levels and the pricing, what were your thoughts about, there's like a digital level, there's physical media, and things like vinyl, obviously, there's huge amounts of fixed cost, whether, if you're just making 1 or 10,000, there's an awful lot of fixed cost. How hard was it to kind of think, well, this is the price that's economical for you and economical for a fan?
I recently made my last album, before the one that I'm crowdfunding now, I recently made the vinyls of that £30, which is considered to be sort of on the slightly expensive side. And a couple of people have mentioned that, but it is an incredibly expensive thing to do, but it's a beautiful medium, so I don't want to not have to do it. And so I decided that it was perhaps like a bespoke item that not everybody would want, but the people that did, I could make this kind of short run of really beautiful vinyls. And so I joke with the audience that they need to think of my vinyls as like a sort of Fabergé egg, that not everyone can have it. It's the sort of like, cream of the crop, sort of rare and special.
One of the things that I thought was interesting on the crowdfunder is, yes, you've got the level, say, of vinyl for £30, and then you've said add the postage you think will be suitable. I mean, has that worked okay? Because is there a worry that someone will just put £1 or something and it's going to cost you £10 to post it? Or generally, if a fan's going to buy vinyl, they're more generous and more aware of kind of the cost of those kind of things.
Yeah, to be honest, most vinyl fans know exactly what it costs to send a vinyl to wherever they are in the world from where they're buying it. They're sort of like tuned into all of those costs. And I would say that people have been fairly accurate in that estimate. Uber vinyl fans tend to be a sort of like detailed and fastidious bunch.
One of the other levels is a documentary or film that you're looking to put alongside it. Do you have a kind of set structure, or is the plan to just kind of film absolutely everything and then it comes out in the edit?
Well, I mean, Alec is the filmmaker and I'm just making the album, and I don't get a say because it doesn't make creative sense for me to tell him what he should film. So that question really needs to go to him.
What I've done is scripted a 20-minute documentary about the act of making the record, but I don't intend to show that script to anyone involved. So I know what I think the story arc will be. Yes, that's you, Josienne. You are going to say the things in my script or variations of them. That gives me the structure, the story shape, and then I'm just gonna wing it. The way it works in studios is total chaos, and you know, from highs to lows, there'll be a moment where really not sure that any of this makes any sense whatsoever, and I hope to capture it. And then by the end, hopefully we'll have an album, and at that point it will feel okay. So that's the shape of my story, and I'm going to film as much as I can, and then in the edit pull that story out of the rushes. That's the plan. So it's a little risky, and I might get nothing, but yeah.
And obviously, you know, that's part of the crowdfunder, but then also do you see that as a kind of a wider thing to have more of a release, whether that's necessarily small-scale theatrical or whatever else, or do you think it'll be YouTube, or where do you think it'll find a home kind of longer term?
Yeah. My plan for that is to festival circuit the documentary before the release. It'd be great to go into the album promotion campaign with a award-winning documentary instead of just a documentary. But YouTube, I'm not aiming for any kind of streaming or release for this over Josienne's YouTube channel. That's what this is for. It's a promotional film for the album.
Yeah, and I mean, how have you found things like that? So I mean, talking about videos and the YouTube channel, watching some of them just before we came on. So something like Sit Out, I thought was really good. Where, you know, with the financial challenges, you have to do more for less. So it's the kind of thing that, you know, don't take this wrong, it doesn't look it's probably relatively cheap to make, but it doesn't look cheap because you've got a story and something's going on, and so you know, is necessity the mother of invention with things like that?
Do you want that one, or shall I take it, JC?
I mean, I think we'll say the same thing, and you're the filmmaker, so I think you talk about the videos would be right.
The videos all cost money to do. You need the equipment, however cheaply you do them. We rented a room to do that in, and that costs hundreds of pounds. And you don't make a single penny back on a music video. It's just not a profit center. And so why bother spending money on making them at all? And it's because they're fun and people like them. So necessity absolutely is the mother of invention. And I enjoyed. I'm glad that you enjoyed Sit Out. That one was pretty cheap. I mean, we made a cardboard amplifier, which is right next to me now. Yeah.
And in terms of kind of promotion, do you kind of find that social media, YouTube, general word of mouth, what are the kind of things that kind of bring new people into your music?
Yeah, I think that's where the videos add this great third dimension to a song. People can stream it, but it's something visual for them to see. It adds this extra narrative, this extra story that helps kind of solidify the theme of the song. And so I find, you know, sharing a little clip of that or something on social media, linking to the video, like lots of new listeners come from, I got, you know, the algorithm gave me this on YouTube and I love the video with the funny guy with it. And so it is like it is an expensive way of kind of drawing people in.
It gets mentioned at the merch table quite a lot. People will say, "Oh, hang on, are you the guy in that video, or you're the guy that makes them, right? Oh, I really enjoy them." And so I can sit here and say that you don't get money for them. They aren't a profit center. But overall, do they attract more fans who buy tickets and buy copies of physical media and stream the record? Yes, they probably do. So it's just a bit intangible.
Yes. Speaking to other people within music or kind of looking online, you know, someone will say, we'll have something on Spotify that will help sell tour tickets, or then your tour will help sell merch. But then, you know, the venue takes a cut of the merch. It seems like all the way along, you've got this kind of stream of kind of a funnel, for want of a better phrase, of kind of activity. But at every stage, someone else is taking their cut. And it doesn't seem that there's much less for the artist at any of the stages. I mean, in terms of you want to get it out, you're not doing it for the money. But is there an area that you kind of think, well, yes, you know, these 5 things don't make money, but eventually you see something here?
It certainly feels like the entire structure of the music industry has been created and maintained to separate the artist from their money. So, you know, like a manager or a label will appear just at the point where you might have some money that they can take a cut of. And there's always somebody in between you and your audience's money. And And so that can be a bit grueling. And one of the things that I think perhaps is like an antidote to that is publishing royalties, like songwriting credits. When you get a song played on the radio, that sort of eventually comes back. And I've got quite a lot of songs, and so that can sort of add up to a reasonable amount of money. I mean, it's not enough to live on, but there are places, there are bits of things that you can eventually sort of scrabble a bit back. But it does feel a bit like the structure is created not to make money for an artist, but to make money for everyone but the artist.
I always think it's interesting
that's
that
a bit of a depressing.
If you take an album and say that we're in the process right now of working on a new record, how much does it cost to make an album? And it would cost the same for anyone who wanted to use a studio and musicians and manufacture some physical objects and then post them to people and get an artist and a photographer and get someone to promote the record. And you'll spend £20,000 to do that, and you'll end up with 1,000 copies of a vinyl and 1,000 copies of the CD. And if you sell them all, then you'll make about £20,000. And so you're not even doing it to make profit. The idea of that would be that you'll get radio play, and that will lead to ticket sales. But then ticket sales, you don't get all of it. You're paying cuts. You have to pay the band. And so like you can have a good guarantee, but like, can you actually walk away by the time you've paid for your hotel and your petrol to get there? Can you actually walk away from a show with a profit? It's very difficult to do that too. So you end up needing either a big chunk of cash behind you to make that make any sense, or a day job. And if you've got a day job, you're not a real artist. And I mean, you are, but that's not how it works. So personally, I find all of that to be very difficult to work inside of, and pretty dispiriting. And so things like platforms like this to talk about that stuff and be realistic about it are incredibly important. So thanks for doing it, because now I'm being all negative and I feel bad. But the truth, the facts on the ground are
yes. That's kind of why I kind of set this up. It's not the beach house in Malibu level of making creativity pay, where you're doing it's like you said, you're doing album 12 now. I'm sure even if you were down to your last penny, you'd probably still, as an artist, you'd still want to make album 13 regardless, however it came out, however you did it. But how it comes out, what it looks like, the time you have to do it will depend to some extent on how successful this album is. And so, it's that being able to keep going and make things a bit easier, and hopefully, whether it's more time in the studio, whether it's better looking vinyl and more into that, and just being able to have the time to do it, I guess.
Alec and I both have a day job now, and so by some people's measure of artistic endeavour, we are failures. But I don't really feel like that about it, because I've done this every way round. I've recorded some demos in my bedroom and put those on MySpace, and I have released a record that would sell in America on a large label. And there's no way round that an artist like me that makes the kind of slow, sad, thoughtful music that I make, for it to be hugely profitable. It doesn't hype, it doesn't catch, it's a 1+1+1 game. One person comes to a gig, likes it, tells someone else, and I'm growing a thing slowly, and it's getting harder and harder to make that even sustainable, because my aim is not to make my money from music, it's to be able to continue to create in any meaningful way. That's, I sort of scaled down my hopes for creative endeavour over the years when I sort of got more entrenched and realised what it's actually like.
But that gives you a freedom. So you can make the music that you want. You can make the film that you want. No one can look at my film and say, no, you should make a different film because it's mine. And it's the same with your record. The flip side is that you get to be exactly the thing that you want. And that's either a thing you can sell or it's not. But it still feels good.
Is there anything from those label times that you particularly miss in terms of support or promotion or anything, or even just kind of having a hard deadline? Are there things that you kind of think, well, yes, it'd be nice to have that, or that was really helpful?
I love all of the creative control that I have from doing it myself. But there's definitely things that I no longer have access to because labels like that have some connections sewn up. So, for example, I performed at End of the Road Festival when I was on Rough Trade, and that was one of the best performances that I've ever done. The thing that is in like the highlights, and I cannot get anywhere near it now, and that's a shame. But so yeah.
So you're saying about Corduroy Punk, you've called it it's a label but not a label. I don't know if you wanted to kind of expand a bit on kind of the ethos behind it and kind of the other artists you work with in that.
I guess it sort of very much is a label, but only in the very sort of like specific sense of that word, in that it is merely a name through which I release my music. It has no standing, no purchase, no assets, nothing. It's got one great artist, and that's it. And that's what I mean by, it's not like I'm not like tied into all the like connected to all the things in the universe. I am just like one woman with a catchy name.
But I mean, do you think there is scope for, not say building a label as such, but a more of a collective? And so, there's certain things, there's certain pressure points and things that you'll know because you've done it that other artists could benefit from. So it's not necessarily, you're guiding someone to make an album, but there's things that you can kind of work with as a kind of collective.
I definitely have hopes for the future that I can grow myself through the label just enough to be of some use to another small artist, create the sort of tiniest funnel through which to put a younger version of myself or something. I do hope that at some point that can be something that can benefit someone else as well. Yeah.
You mentioned an interesting. You mentioned the term collective, right? And I feel like that's quite an interesting. What you'd think is that there could be like a sort of a dream of independent artists all coalescing around an idea to build each other up and support everyone, and then we don't need a big label because we have each other and one person has that sense of access. And I think that there was a time when I thought that could work as well, but actually, although there is a sense of growth around Corduroy Punk, what it seems is that all artists are kind of a little scared around, made to feel that unless they have access to the proper labels, the things that they've heard of, and unless they're doing this full time without working in a petrol station to make ends meet, that they're just not doing it properly, and everyone feels a bit embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it. And the reason that artists can be milked like cows is because they have this kind of vision for their own work which they're scared that someone else will steal. And I feel like actually I don't see many examples of that kind of collective working because this lack of trust that's been bred by the industry. So sorry, there's another negative viewpoint. It's a lovely idea. I wish it could work. And I see Josienne going out and having a label. And wouldn't it be marvelous if you could, like I say, coalesce around that idea? It's not quite the way in reality that it works. Resources are just too limited. Nobody wants to join in. Nobody wants to share their time to build someone else's thing. They either do it themselves or chase a label. And that's counterproductive for sure.
And obviously within music, Spotify is kind of, well, I wouldn't say, some will say it's the devil and it's kind of not necessarily good for artists. And Bandcamp is seen as a bit more of a knight in shining armor. I mean, is it as black and white as that? I mean, does Bandcamp offer something that a lot of Spotify and the other streamers don't?
It's certainly true to say that Bandcamp is out on its own, providing a thing that artists need and really can't manage without. And the day that is bought and plundered will be a sad day for independent grassroots music. I don't happen to think that the idea of Spotify is a terrible idea. What an amazing platform with a fantastic algorithm that presents people who've never heard of anything that I've done with music of mine because they like something that has a sonic link. it's the remuneration of it that I have a problem with. It's the same problem that's at the root of everything in the music industry, is that somewhere in an office at the top, there's a guy who doesn't care about music. There's lots of people who genuinely do care about music, all the way down, all right down to the artists. But the guy at the top is the one who says, and he doesn't care if the only music that people will hear in the future is made by the hugely independently wealthy and AI.
Yeah, that's where things go, right? That's where things go.
Yes, I can imagine that there's going to be more of that, and obviously, yes, they can push certain playlists that are more beneficial financial to them and others, and so yeah, there's all sorts of things happening there. Alex, looking at your website, one of the things you talked about was possibly mentoring young artists on the filmmaking side of things and working on that. I mean, is there arguably even less money in filmmaking than there is in music? I mean, is it a difficult thing that again you're kind of having to do for the love until you get really far in your career and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. A couple of things in there. I think about why there's not a Spotify for film. There's no website that you can log on to and watch every single film that's ever been made by everyone forever for $9.99 a month, right? And the reasons why, we probably haven't got time to speculate what they might be, but I think diving into that is quite an interesting subject. The prize is massive. I'm working on a feature at the moment, and I could write a script for free at this desk that makes $228 million, and then everyone I know is a squillionaire. Josienne could make an album, and however well you could ever possibly dream it could do, that the numbers are smaller, and that's, I think, the reason that Spotify can work that way, and that there is no such thing as that for film. I guess in terms of mentoring, yeah, that's that I'd love there to be the sense of community and coalescing around sharing ideas. And I personally hate gatekeeping. And so the idea that the thing that I make is somehow like a magical secret, that I used some technique that only certain special people know about. No. You can learn everything on YouTube. There's nothing that can't be done. It's the same for music too. And, people don't like to share because they have so little that, that if they give away that one secret, then they're not special anymore. And I personally kind of hate that. Do I make money from music videos? No. Do I make money from films? No. Do I hope to do that one day? Yes, I do. The project I'm working on at the moment, not the documentary, but the feature that comes after. Yeah, I intend to try and get that distributed. That would be lovely. And along the way, I intend to give breaks to people who have less, and try to mentor them in a way that I feel some people have done for me. And watching the people who are happy to share what they know for no other reason than celebrating that it is great to make things and it is great as a human to share, those people get rewarded and they get involved in my projects. Not sure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's brilliant. So just to go back to the crowdfunders, what are the plans? I think you said it was your first crowdfund. I mean, what I've seen before is that you'll get like a burst at the start and a burst at the end, and relatively quiet in the middle. I don't know if you kind of found out that the first couple of days was whoosh, and then it's kind of a lot harder. I mean, do you have any kind of plans or strategies or things you're looking to push out and get that interest built?
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a shape to every single crowdfunder that's ever been, which is, people are sort of enthusiastic and then there's this dip in the middle, and I'm sort of in that at the moment. And then, as I understand it, that all kind of kicks off towards the end. I mean, I've got 13 brand new songs, and I'm intending to sort of tease out some of the details of my plan for that album. I'm going to get Alec to talk about his plans for the documentary, and hopefully, towards the end, really get a bit of a buzz going.
Got loads of shows coming up. The Sandy Denny shows are going to be good for promoting the crowdfunder too.
And in terms of online, Have you got as far as Blue Sky yet? I mean, I can't take another social media platform. I don't think I have it in me. I mean, and that's the thing now. You have to spread yourself so thin. It's not just, whereas in the past maybe you could have just done enough on Twitter or just done enough on YouTube. Now there's half a dozen different platforms. I mean, how have you kind of found that?
I did eventually relent and make a Blue Sky profile because a few people on Twitter and a couple of other things had asked why I wasn't over there. And I think my first blue skip, whatever you call it, was, for F's sake, I've got to make another effing profile. And yeah, it is. It's like, you've got a piece of content that you want to post and it takes an hour because you have to resize and rejig for every single platform and format. And, you'll get maybe 3 people on each thing looking at it, but that's the job now, isn't it? And in a way, it's sort of spreading your bets, because I used to have a huge, my largest numbers were on Twitter, and it was verified, and then that all went, the way that it went. And now, you don't put too much stock in any one platform because they could explode at any time.
You kind of think, do you want to go down the route of can I make my song viral on TikTok, and all those kind of things where you'll kind of lose the will to live almost on doing that kind of stuff.
I sort of decided I definitely can't make my song go viral on TikTok. That's not the kind of artist that I am, and I just sort of plug away every so often sharing these nice, sad little songs that get a few people going, oh yeah, that's nice. That's my business model.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time on this. Just to finish, you want to talk a bit about the crowdfunder and where people can find you, and kind of on the crowdfunder, where what kind of levels, what people can get.
Yes, my crowdfunder, album 12, Josienne Clarke crowdfunder, album 12. All the usual things that you'd expect. You can get a CD and a vinyl. There's special art prints and little extra bits. You can buy a bundle of them all. But there's also things you can, for a bit more money, you can buy yourself onto the credits of the documentary. For a lot of money, you can be an executive producer. But there's also things if you want a one-to-one songwriting session with me, which is not a thing that I've ever really done before or ever intend to do. So it's kind of pretty exclusive to this crowdfunder. Come and spend an hour talking about songs or working on your songs with me. The same for singing. We can have a chat or a lesson, do some singing. So those are all there. Yeah, things that I never have offered before and perhaps never will again. So get them while they're hot.
Thanks again to Josienne and Alec for taking part. You can find more details about the crowdfunder and where else you can find them in the show notes. Thanks for listening.